Discovery, Roger. Go for deploy.
Hey, welcome back, guys. So today we have another great show for you. We have Julien Pineau. Julien, as many of our listeners will probably already know, is the mastermind behind StrongFit. He is fantastic when it comes to programming, when it comes to rehab and prehab, when it comes to getting strong. Basically very big on training the right way in the way of CrossFit, functional fitness, all this fast exercising, rather than the way that CrossFit have kind of told people to do it. He's basically smarter than HQ. So he's great. He's a really fun guy. Got an awesome accent. Sounds like George St. Pierre, probably just because he's got a French accent. French people probably think he sounds nothing like him. But I think he sounds like George St. Pierre. And I think it's a great show and you'll really enjoy it. This show is brought to you by Carve, guys. Head to www.carve.ph/ADVF to check out what they do. They're a VA service. All of our assistants at AdventureFit are from Carve. And if you want to check them out, outsource some stuff, get some time back in your life, head to www.carve.ph/ADVF and you'll get 10 hours free. Also, guys, we are brought to you by Audible. If you want a free audiobook and a 30-day trial with Audible to check out their service, head to www.audibletrial.com/ADVF. You will not regret it, guys. It is my favorite app on my phone. I absolutely love it. I can listen to books when I'm driving my car, when I'm cleaning the house, when I'm going for a run. I don't really run anymore, but if I was to go for a run, it's amazing. So get that information in while you're on the move. And lastly but not leastly, we are brought to you by AdventureFit Travel. So, guys, we're rolling out our AdventureFit Rewards program at the moment. And what that is basically is it's about getting groups together. So if you're an affiliate owner and you have a group that you can put together and get a private trip along, then you can travel for free, pick your own destination, and plan who you want to be coached by, what you want to do over there. So if you have any inquiries or any questions about this, email me directly, doc@adventurefittravel.com. Something that we're really big on for the end of the new year is finding some affiliates and some people that want to partner with us and provide some trips for their clients, for their community, and it's going to be great. So doc@adventurefittravel.com if you want more information on that. Everything else that we're up to is on the website www.adventurefittravel.com. Here is the show. Alrighty, guys, welcome back to
Starting
Adventure
it again
Radio.
with alrighty.
Yeah, always alrighty,
Straight
guys.
back in the new year.
Always alrighty, guys.
Alrighty, guys.
Today we have Julien Pineau with us. We are hanging to get into a conversation with him, but before we throw over to Julien and introduce him, we are going to throw to Tommy, as usual, for Tommy's tribute.
Alors, bonjour Julien.
Bonjour.
Bonjour, ça va?
Tout va bien, merci.
D'accord, d'accord. Alors, no, I'm not going to speak French. All right, here we go. Sometimes I feel like I'm not getting strong. Sometimes I feel like there's no other way than to start taking steroids, gear and testosterone. Any subs booster is fine by me. But then there's this guy who knows how to move. He is all about strong fit. He's got nothing to prove. Tell me, Julien, how do I get some muscles as big as yours? Cause I don't ever wanna be, I'm literally a skinny guy at a club. Take me on a path to strength, so I can get any girl at a pub. I don't ever wanna be that guy that just can't open marmalade jars. Tell me how to get strong legs so I can start squatting cars. Yeah. Welcome Julien.
Hey, that was awesome. That is the first. I've never been welcome to a podcast with a song. That's awesome.
That was a really good one, Tommy. I liked it. Your voice was struggling, mate.
Yeah, my voice.
You're a bit under the weather, mate.
I'm in the grill, mate. I'm in the grill.
You are right in the grill.
I'm in the furnace.
Julian, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Cool. Hey, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Tell us a bit about where you're from. Obviously, it's a very foreign accent to most of our Australian and American listeners.
Well, he's Western Australian.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, no, the legend is that I come from Paris. Let's be honest, I mostly keep the accent for the ladies.
Hey.
It still works. So I'm a movement specialist. I mean, it's a fancy name to say I fix people, really. And so there's a number of issues in the fitness industry that I try to tackle one by one. And the first big one is movement, because I want to make sure everybody can train. I mean, not 100% pain-free, but, mostly in a good way without having to go back to the PT or surgery every so often. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the industry really revolves around athletes, or at least training for athletes, where very few coaches, as coaches get better, usually they go toward athletes, and then as they get better, pro athletes, and then, and so forth and so on, which bothers me always, because we're saying common people do not deserve better coaches. Mm-hmm. So I'm making it my mission really to try to further the, all the things about movement and training in general, but toward the 99%, not just the pro athletes and such.
Awesome.
Sick.
That's very cool. So what was it that made you, where did this all begin? Where did your physical training history start, and what made you want to, what made you click into this gear where you wanted to be the best coach in the world, but bring that to everybody?
Well, the training wise, I've always trained. I mean, I've been in competitive sports at a national level. I remember when I was 9 years old with soccer, that's when it started. And then I've been a state champion in many different sports. Right. Actually, there was a funny one with swimming. At my gym, I had the Melbourne team, for the CrossFit Games, coming to my gym to train and everything. And I remember 2 years ago, so the team comes, and then the more or less the leader of the team is there. And we start talking about swimming, and he's like, "Yeah, I used to swim as well." I was like, "Oh, that's cool. Hey, I was a state champion." It was like, "Oh yeah, that's cool, nice." And he was like, "What was your thing?" I was freestyle and butterfly. He was like, yeah, me too. I was like, "Oh, that's cool." And so we take a picture, and then the next day a friend of mine calls me and said, "Do you know who that guy is?" I was like, "No, I know his first name is Andrew, that's all." He was like, "Okay, that's Andrew Lotterstein." Then the triple gold medalist at Beijing, and the guy who beat Michael Phelps. I was like, "Oh, cool." I was wondering why he had Olympic ring tattoos on his ribs. Now I know. So I told an Olympic gold medalist I was state champion. So there you go.
We actually, he's a good friend of ours, Andrew Lord.
Yeah, we know
yeah.
Good guy.
Yeah, he's a great, he's a
really
great
good
fella.
guy.
He's a very attractive man, but he knows it.
Never stopped me from talking.
He
was so nice. He was like, yeah, that's cool, man. Good for you. Like, you fucker.
Yeah. Good for you, dweeb.
Yeah,
good for you, though. That's cute.
Thank
God I did tell him I was 12 at the time.
Yeah.
He's a frustrating man, the old Andrew Lauderstein. He's too good looking and too talented to be.
Yeah, that's right.
Because he's good at CrossFit as well.
Good CrossFit, got a good rig.
Yeah.
Got a very, very nice jawline.
And he's a nice guy.
Good dude.
That's the worst thing about it. He's actually, you'd want him to be a jerk.
Got a hot missus. Yeah, he's got it all. Yep.
Fuck that guy.
He's a really cool guy. That's I love swimming, but I don't really follow it. So looking at his attitude, you will never guess who he is.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely.
That's right. So where were we?
We were talking about swimming.
Okay, so I did a lot of sports growing up. And and naturally, then I started MMA when I was about 19.
Oh, nice.
And my first coach made me coach the physical aspect of the class right away. Even, as a white belt, because and then I realized I really, really like coaching. Right away, I felt I could tell you right away I knew I was a coach before an athlete. I still kept on training and tried to be an athlete, but coaching is something that that's my vocation. As much as I like competing and everything, coaching is really my thing. And as I coached more and more and more, I started to notice the same patterns of injuries happening with athletes. And what was killing me was those were injuries that were not like sudden. It's not like you got hit in the knee sideways. I mean, those were things that were gradually happening to athletes, but to a point where they will always end up with surgery or having to retire and everything. And at some point, I was like, there's got to be, if it gets worse gradually, there's got to be a way to make it better gradually. Yeah. Like the definition of insanity by Einstein. I mean, like doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And what I saw really was coaches that did not question themselves as to why their athletes were getting hurt that way. It was like, well, that's the way it is. It's a little bit how it works in this world is like when the athlete breaks, most of the coaches are like, well, I'm looking for the one that won't break. I'm looking for that one that will be a gold medalist. I'm like, yeah, like the Chinese do. Like if they break 1,000, who cares?
Yeah,
as long as they make one gold medalist.
Yeah.
And that bothers me. That is not the why I do this. Me, the way I look at it is anybody who comes into my gym, I will make the best out of them. I'll make the better version of them, the best version of them that I can. But I'm not going to break any of them in order to fit into my system. That's just not the way I look at coaching. To me, that's not coaching. And so, so it bothers me to see all those athletes that had those repetitive injuries where I knew there was a way to fix it. And so what I did is I tried to find a system that would work for grandma to Andrew with everybody in the middle. But we could have an understanding of what movement is so we can address faulty pattern movements.
Absolutely.
Okay.
What about Andrew?
That's really what I do.
Okay, cool. So you were seeing the same kind of, there was a correlation between the MMA gung-ho coaching style till people break, as well as functional fitness. You're kind of seeing the same thing across the board, do you mean, as like training in general?
Yeah, well, look at Olympic weightlifting, right? There was an argument, because I talk about internal torque and everything all the time, and there was an argument with guys were posting on Facebook, and those were two top Olympic weightlifting in the US. And they were like, yeah, no, I don't teach that. I just teach them to push against the bar. And the other guy was like, yeah, my athletes don't even understand the difference between internal and external. And they were like, yeah. And I was like, then teach them. Then what the hell are you doing? Like we deal in knowledge, not just I'm going to teach you to push against the bar. Yeah. That to me is the wrong approach to it, because what are you saying, that you're only going to coach the one that naturally do the movement? And so then we're going back to only wanting to have top athletes then. But that's you know what I mean? Like then you're not teaching movement, you're not coaching people. You just want top athletes to go win medals, which I understand, but that's not what I do. Okay. And there's a lot of people out there that need coaches that are just think more than, just push against the bar. It kills me that they don't seem to care as to why some do it naturally, some don't do it naturally. Like if you have a guy who snatches naturally, of course you don't need to change it. But what happens when you have a guy that doesn't? That comes and every time he tries to snatch, his shoulder hurts.
Yeah,
that's
so
right.
you're gonna tell him go somewhere else, don't snatch, don't train. You know what I mean? Like that's not, to me, that's not right.
You know what I think it is, Julien. I did some coaching in my past, and I was somebody who was I would get very excited by the thought of new knowledge and bettering myself. Felt like you explained yourself as I felt like a coach before an athlete. Not that I was a good athlete anyway, really, but I always put equal amount of time into each, but I was more passionate about the coaching side. And I remember I was coaching with a new coach who would come on at the gym I was working at, and he said to me, I said, "How's it going? Are you really enjoying it?" He goes, "Yeah, no, it's good. I'm having fun." I said, "What's next? Like, where are you getting more information from? Like, are you going to do this course? Are you thinking about doing some training with this guy?" Like, throwing some ideas at him.
Yeah.
And he said, "Nah. No, I'm pretty happy. I'm pretty happy with where I am." And he was very, very novice coach, to say the least.
Yeah.
And I was dumbfounded. I was like, but don't you want to go out and get better? Like, how can you be happy with...
Well, clearly there's no passion in that.
Yeah. I think
it's just a job for him.
I think there's obviously so many people out there that just don't have the same drive to get better, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly. And it, to me, it kills me, because I see I see a lot of coaches that have that passion that want to fix people, but the industry is driven by the top athletes, by the pros, by the CrossFit Games, by stuff like that. But my biggest problem with this is then the training is based on those people that can afford to have pain in the morning, that can that get away with more because they're such great athletes, they're so strong, they get away with a lot of stuff normal people cannot get away with. But then the industry, the programming, all that stuff is driven by those genetic freaks, and then you're left with the common people coming to your gym getting hurt all the time or not getting the results they should, and people look at them going like, yeah, well, they don't have it. I'm like, I don't give a shit if they have it or not. I'm going to fix them. And so more and more, I'm focusing about less and less on the top athletes and more on just trying to fix people, because to me, they deserve just as much as everybody else, if not more. You know what I mean? Like, how much difference can I make in the life of a CrossFit Game athlete? Okay, so instead of 11th, they're going to be 8th. Yoo-hoo, great. Whereas when I have the common people that come to me with a bad back, if I can fix that guy, he can play with his kids. He can be nicer. He can be good at his work, 50
at his kilograms wife. Overweight, and having all kinds of health problems. Yeah, I totally agree. You're helping his family as well. I mean, it's not just him; it's his friends, his kids, his wife. It's actually much more important, really.
Yes, I think so. To me, there's no question. But if you look again, like, it's a fundamental flaw of the industry. Is like everything we do is based on training top athletes. So that's why you have those 6-week cycle, because it's always like, oh, you have a competition in 6 weeks, or you have a goal in 6 weeks, or you have, how about 6 years? You know what I mean? Like, not everything is designed for top athletes. We have to design all this for people that have different goals as well.
I think that's one of the good things about CrossFit is that people will initially come to a sport like that and they'll go, all right, I want to make the regionals, and then they slowly begin to understand just how many years it takes, and before they know it, it's sort of like CrossFit has sort of become like a lifestyle for them, which is why you see so many changes, as opposed to people just going to commercial gyms and going, I want to lose 10 kilos. Then they lose 10 kilos and they're like, oh, great. And it's not a lifestyle change, so they don't actually learn to enjoy movement and staying healthy and being better, and because that's what CrossFit and functional movement ultimately does.
That was the goal. That was the original goal of Greg Glassman. Was exactly that. Yeah. They got sidetracked by the games, but Greg Glassman hates the CrossFit Games himself. He says it all the time. His goal was always to bring training to common people. And so I think the CrossFit gyms do a much better job at this than any other out there. They still, to me, like, there's been a push toward the CrossFit Game too much in the last few years. But most CrossFit gyms understand, as a sport and not as a training system. But most CrossFit gyms understand that this is not who they have. Yeah. In their gym. I
had a good example. I had a good example. One of my good buddies, Will, he actually took over. He was manager of a box, and then he ended up becoming the affiliate owner. And he didn't write the programming for the first. He didn't write the programming while he was manager, and then he took over the programming once he became the owner, obviously. And he said to me just before he took over and had to start writing the programming, he sent me some programming for the day, and he said, "Hey, what do you think about this? Just text it to me." And he sent me 3x3 2-position snatch from the knees and from the hip, 3x4 snatch balance, and then something like a crazy WOD with 4 rounds and muscle ups and something else.
All the good stuff.
So he showed me that, and me as a guy that was pretty physically decent, I can do all those movements. That's all the shit I like to do because it's challenging, it's fun, whatever. He sent me it, and I'm like, yeah, that's a rad workout. He goes, yeah, but, and he was asking me about his gym, the general populace, and he texted me back. He used a woman, woman by the name of Mary. I'll call her Mary Smith because she has a different name. He said to me, texted me back and said, do you think Mary Smith needs to be doing a 2-position snatches followed by snatch balances on a Monday morning?
I don't give a fuck what Mary Smith.
You know what I mean? And then I was like, oh well, when you put it like that, probably 90% of the gym doesn't need that programming at all.
Exactly. Yeah.
No, exactly. And that's there has to be on the community level a bit of of a talk or where we're going with CrossFit. Like, like Glassman disappeared for years. And basically Tev Castro took his vision, which is he's in charge of the CrossFit Games. So his vision took over. But that was never the point of CrossFit, the training system. So now you have CrossFit, the training system. You have CrossFit, the sport. You have CrossFit HQ. And then you have the community and everything. Like, I think HQ owns the CrossFit Games, but we as a community own CrossFit. Mm-hmm. And there's a few things we need to talk about as a community. And for example, one of them is stop that push toward the games, because that's not helping. That's actually hurting a lot of people. I can tell you from my side that I see shoulder problems as a major issue, the thickening of the lower back, the neck issues are starting to come, the long head of the bicep. There's some like common patterns that I see emerging, and that it comes out of that ridiculous high volume training that tries to mimic the regionals. And it's not working.
Yeah.
It's not working. It has to be accepted that it's just not working.
Here's my thing about that, though, is that so the reason I like CrossFit so much is because it constantly demands you to put yourself into a challenging situation. So like a WOD or just a more difficult movement, like getting your first muscle up, all this sort of stuff. And to get that mindset, to get that never happy with who you are and constantly progressing in life, and self-development really is just such a good skill to have. And I think CrossFit facilitates that really well. The only thing, like we said just then, is that if you're doing too much volume, which is what can happen sometimes when a lot of the community isn't sure about what to do, is that then obviously injuries can come into play. But you were saying before about how that WOD, about with Mary Smith and all that sort of stuff, muscle ups and snatches, all that sort of stuff. I would have no problem as a coach writing that, because I would say, hey guys, look, this is a level you can get to if you move really well and you keep training, but we can always scale it back. You know what I mean?
Well, that's how it's supposed to be, I suppose. I mean, it's a good point. Scale.
We can always scale it back as long as you move well.
No, but the problem is the problem is the direction this is taking. So I think we can all agree what the body needs is intensity and blood flow. And the key of CrossFit has always been high intensity workout, not high volume. The point, and that was the base of CrossFit, as you see, is the challenging aspect. That's the high intensity. Yep. The problem with the high intensity, and that's something like the old school CrossFitters have found out, is that if you do that with what I call the high WES, you're going to be in problem. So the WES is WES. W is for weight bearing, E is for eccentric, S is for skill. Right. If you try to push intensity with a high WES, so either high weight bearing or high eccentric, high skill, you're putting a tremendous amount of stress on your body, and eventually will break down. And so the key for me is the lower the WES, the lower the weight bearing, the eccentric, and the skill, the higher I can push the intensity safely. So the key is not to change the idea of intensity for CrossFit. On the contrary, which is what's happening right now with the volume. We have going from a high intensity to a high volume program. We can keep with the high intensity, but what happened is as people got broken, they had to go toward volume instead of intensity because they just could not push the body any further. But to me, it just comes down to the choice of exercises, not the idea of CrossFit. I think the idea is great. All we have to do is to understand that certain people have to be lower on the WES scale in order to reach a certain level of intensity without breaking. So there are ways to do this. There are ways to push that intensity on a weekly basis without breaking people at the same time. So when you scale, you're going to scale it's a way to do it, but it's not. You might reduce the intensity when you do that, because you're still going to keep the weight bearing down, but the skill is still high, so it's still going to stop them from performing. I want to push people to the maximum possible intensity, but to do this, I have to make sure I do not break them.
Absolutely.
And so I have different ways of doing this. But to me, the idea of CrossFit was to push the intensity to absurd level. If you remember CrossFit when we all started, it was fun, it was grace, it was all that stuff, but workout where by the last 2 reps you were dying. That was the idea of Greg Glassman.
Yeah. What about this, Julien? So what about, just to your point there a little bit, what about this mindset that's been drilled in from basically the top down at CrossFit where, say you do have Grace, for example, and all these workouts that we do all, that was one of my favourite workouts, fast, high intensity, sharp. But what about this theory of like, everything has to be as quick as humanly possible, touching touch and go every rep, no matter what happens. Do you ever think of? For me, I started weightlifting. I left CrossFit, but towards the end of my CrossFit kind of career, what I would do is I just stopped doing touch and go reps. I was never going to win the CrossFit Games, but I wanted to work at a really high intensity, but I wanted to move
just
well.
Singles.
Yeah, I just wanted to, so I would do things, if I had, say, Grace is a bad example, or you can use that as an example, but I would do singles, or if I had, but I could still make sure my heart rate was jacked and I was re-gripping the bar every time and setting up well. It all came into play, but I used to have a problem with the whole gung-ho attitude. Just everybody's drilled in to go as fast as humanly possible is the first thing in people's minds. I don't think that. This is what I believe. I think like
the best athletes these days can do that, but they can still move well.
Yeah, but this is the best athletes. This is the best athletes.
You know what you said, it comes from the top down, though.
No, but I'm talking about just for the masses. I think
for the masses, yeah.
I think there's too much emphasis on speed at all costs, and that do or die, rip your hands, never give up, all that kind of. Yeah. What do you think about? Is that kind of part of the problem? Do you think?
Yeah, it is. But if you look, if you put Grace on or like Elizabeth or stuff like that, or stuff like that on the West scale, the skill is high. That means you cannot push the intensity as much as you would want. Yeah. And so we go back to the choice of exercises. My biggest problem with Grace is it's fairly, so the weight bearing is not great, but it's there. There's very little eccentric, but there's a lot of skill involved to do barbell cycling properly. So naturally, it's gonna reduce the amount of intensity you can put into it safely. So when I want to kill people, instead of that idea that to go as fast as humanly possible with Olympic weightlifting, which I disagree completely with, because it's too high of a skill to do that. Mm-hmm. But if you take a prowler, a sled, and you start doing sprints with it, there is no limit to how hard you can try to go at it in a safe way.
Absolutely.
Like you can take that sled and sprint as fast as humanly possible every single time, as hard as you can until you pass out. You will wake up the next day and you'll have no pain anywhere outside of your face when you fell on the pavement. So I have exercises like that. Again, the low waist, right? Low weight. So what? Low weight bearing, low eccentric, low skill means what? Means anything with a sled. So I'm going to pull a rope attached to a sled. I can drag it. I can sprint it. I can put a harness and do like even though it's very heavy, it's still not weight bearing on my structure. Like the truck pull in the World's Strongest Man. All those exercises are very low skill. They have no eccentric and they're not weight bearing on your structure. So you can push those as hard as you want until literally you pass out and you will never hurt yourself. Mm. So there are ways to do this. Again, where I disagree with them is the choice of exercises. Olympic weightlifting is not a good system to go as fast as humanly possible on. The waist is too high. So to me, it always comes down to gauging the exercise on the waist, but you have to understand that the higher the waist, the lower the intensity, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so I think obviously the biggest problem is choosing the exercises and having kind of bad coaching out there with bad programming.
Yeah, it's the coaching, definitely.
How do you go about yourself? You seem very passionate about always gaining new knowledge and so forth. Julien, what do you do? Or what do you recommend to coaches out there? Because there's all these courses that people can do, and courses cost money. So, we want to get these coaches that want to educate themselves. We want to get as educated as humanly possible. We want to get as many good coaches in the world as there can be. What do you do for yourself to gain new information, and like what resources do you use to better yourself always?
None of it has to do with training of what I do. I just try to get better as a human a little bit every day. You can learn to type on a computer for free. There's plenty of lessons online. Like, it sounds stupid, but this is you making yourself better. Like, I've never learned how to type. So I was like, you know what? This is something where I can get better. I can be better today than I was yesterday by doing something like that every single day. And I do. So I do this. I watch a lot of lectures about quantum mechanics because that's something that fascinates me.
Nice.
There's a guy named Leonard Susskind. He's the Stanford professor of physics, right? Mm-hmm. And all his lectures are on YouTube for free.
Ooh,
all of them.
That's awesome.
He has his entire thing, and he explains quantum mechanics in a way anybody can understand.
That's a bit
sexy. You don't have to be good at, you don't have to know anything about it to understand, but he starts to go into the complex ideas of, how come time is a one-way street? And then he goes into the mystery of quantum mechanics, and there's so much stuff out of there. And then forget being good at quantum mechanics. This is just about opening your mind, about becoming a little bit smarter, a little bit better today than you were yesterday. You just learned something new. You just made your brain work better. And so I study a lot of neuroscience, and there's something called neuroergonomy, which is very interesting to me because it's the art of presenting knowledge in an accessible way. And so it's fascinating because like they do stuff like the point of neuroergonomy is to explain that the brain can connect parts of itself that are not designed for a certain task, but if they connect together, they become that much stronger. So I'll explain. You have those guys that are memory champions, right? They can remember like some ridiculous stuff. The way they do it is they don't just use the memory part, the short-term memory part of the brain. They're going to use part of the brain that is actually responsible for movement or stuff like that. They're basically going to use parts of the brain that have nothing to do with the task at hand. But by connecting those two, they increase the capacity of the brain to do more work. And so you can train that. You can train to memorize things by doing association of number with letters or things like that. So those are things that you can do every day that doesn't cost you a dime and that makes you a little bit smarter every single time. So I read a lot about stuff like that. So because I read about basically improving yourself. And if you improve yourself as even as a human being, like if you care more as a coach, you already became better. So better yourself, it doesn't cost any money, but every single day just become better than you were yesterday. Find something, it doesn't matter what it is, just find something, just become better at it. And you do that every single day with that mindset, and you'll become a better coach because you'll become more curious about everything in life. You'll become smarter, you'll become more enlightened. That will make you a better coach right away. Not everything is about learning the snatch or even about training or stuff like that. The biggest battle is just about becoming a better person, a better human being, and someone that cares more, that wants to help everyone, and that has nothing to do with training. And this is free, man. You don't need to pay anything for that.
100%. And then that way you're bettering yourself for dealing with people, because that's the biggest part of it is dealing with, getting people to respond to you and want to work with you and know what you're saying to them. There's so many people out there with so much knowledge that have no way, that have terrible communication skills and people skills and life skills, and it's all useless.
And that was the word in your ergonomy that I like so much, was accessible knowledge. That means like knowledge you can actually share to other people that they will integrate in their lives. Who cares that you're right if you can explain it to anybody? And that's the thing. Like, so François I was a king of France a long time ago, and he sucked at school.
François the first king of France.
I have a mate named Francois from France, actually, and I used to give him heaps about it.
Was he the king of France?
Oui, Francois from France.
Oh, where's your
We don't say oui, by the way. I don't know where that comes from. But
that's strange, isn't it?
Go on, Francois from France.
And so he was the king of France, and he was really, really bad at school. Like he sucked, so bad that something the king of France could not do. And so what they did, they hired Leonardo da Vinci to teach him. That's another pretty cool name. And what Leonardo da Vinci did basically is he mentored François I. He didn't try to teach him because he realized that wasn't working. He mentored him. He tried to find ways to keep François I interested, to make him want to learn more. And through the years, François I became excessively successful in that system, to the point that he created the first university in Paris and called him literally the first university. And it was based on the mentoring system that Leonardo da Vinci showed him. So the entire idea of college after school was a mentoring system, because it works better to share knowledge. A PhD that just sits you for 6 hours and explains to you the letters does nothing. To me, the key is to mentor people forward. And that's what a coach should be. CrossFit is not just about snatching. It's about making them healthier. Then you have to mentor them into that. You can't just tell them, go do that. Nobody has ever, for example, lost 20 kilos by being told to stop eating carbs. It doesn't work like that. You have to mentor people. You have to look at the psychological aspect. There's many, many different layers going into being able to make people successful at what they want. So it's not just that book that you read, that system that they sell you for 6 weeks, and it goes much further than that. We have to basically deal with human beings. Stop dealing with systems and methods and paper. Deal with human beings. It's just about taking that guy at your gym and make him better. And there are so many ways to do this, and not everything is training related. I mean, and so all this you can learn is not learned necessarily in books. I mean, books help obviously, but it goes way past that. It's about mentoring people, not just teaching them the ABC.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. We had a good conversation with Ben Bergeron at one point, who talked a lot about. I'm pretty sure, Tommy, he mentioned that he had like meditation practices that he recommended to all his clients, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So he would, obviously that's one step furthering people's just happiness in their lives, or their mindfulness, and going that extra, and it's making that personal connection, trying to, like, I know I want to make you fitter, I know I want to make you stronger, but let's get better as people.
It's lifestyle coaching, though, really, isn't it?
Yeah,
and I think
it should be anyway.
Yeah, I think the great thing about meditation is, like, especially mindfulness meditation, is because you learn so much more about yourself, and like it's like, oh fuck, I just can't lose weight. It's like, well, actually, the reason is because maybe this happened as a kid or something, and now you're just habitually tuned into not doing this, or you don't even know the habits you do as a person. And when you find out more about who you are, it's almost like you break all the walls down and then you start from scratch. Okay, cool. Now I know who I am. Now I know how I work with certain things. Now I can try to lose weight or whatever it is. You know.
Yeah.
It's the only way to do it. It's the only way that works. Like, anybody you heard who lost like 100 kilos or whatever, they can always tell you they had that one moment where suddenly they realize, like, oh, okay, like that they found their why. Like I tell all the time, it's about the why and the how, never the what. Yep, don't focus on the what. Focus on the why and the how. And all those people that lost like the ridiculous amount of weight, they always tell you they had that moment where they found their why. Usually because they got scared of dying, or they wanted to be around for their kids or whatever. But they all have that why. But before that moment, whatever they were doing was useless. And the second they found their why, then they're on the road to success. It's always like that, man. It's about the why and the how, always. So that's why we have to communicate, is to try to get people to find their why. Absolutely.
So is that some of the things that because something that I struggle with myself is just putting new habits into place. Like I always tell myself that I should be meditating more every day, or I should be eating a little better here and there, and it always seems to sort of go to shit. Apart from the why, how do you sort of help people, Julien, with their, sort of making new lifestyle habits?
Well, that's the thing, is everything is a game of association. I mean, so the key for me is it's like passion. You can't teach passion. You can't really, you can't make it happen. I mean, it's there or it's not. So the key is for me, is always to find what intrinsically motivates people. Everybody has certain things they're good at. There are certain things they're more passionate than others and everything. And I try to create association based on that. Like the best success I had at my gym was a guy who came to me, was 60 years old, and he had never trained a day in his life. Just to give you an idea, he could not squat to a 60 centimeters box without falling. Sure. Like that bad. I mean, so a step away from breaking everything. Yeah. But he came to my gym 3 times a week for 5 years and missed very few sessions. Why? Because he wanted to be around for his kid's 40th birthday, because he had his son late in life when he was 45. And he was like, when my kid turns 40, I want to be there. And so we created the entire thing based on that. So I never told him like 6 weeks from now. We never had goals that were like, you're going to deadlift 315. That was never the goals. The goals were always like, okay, we need this to be better. Why? Because otherwise this will break. And then 20 years from now, this will happen. That was always the way we built everything forward. It was never designed. His training was never designed on performance. It was always about you need to feel better. You need to be healthy going up and down the stairs. But 5 years down the road, he's doing 180-pound sandbag squats, 130-pound sandbag front squat. This is someone who could not even touch parallel before. I mean, and he's done 13 strict pull-ups, 30 push-ups. So, but that was never the goal. I never got him to go like, one day I'm going to make you do 30 push-ups and 13 pull-ups. That was never the idea. It was always toward what talked to him as a person, which was, you're going to be better 5 years from now that you were today, and that's going to allow you to play with your kid, to be around when he's 25, when he has, when he brings that girl home. And that talked to him, that connected with him on a level that made him go like, I'm going to come back tomorrow to train.
Yeah.
And that's the key, man. It was never performance. He could not care less about doing a muscle up.
Yeah.
He does not care. But if I try to make him do a muscle up for the next 6 months, it's going to discourage him because suddenly he's going to fail at something instead of being successful. He's going to start to go, but why am I trying to do this? I hurt my shoulder every time. Now I can't do this, or I can't play with my kid. You know what I mean? So you have to understand, it's not about you as a coach. It's about the people you have. It's that, I remember in Star Wars, in The Empire Strikes Back, when Luke Skywalker is in Dagobah with Yoda, and then he looks at a dark cave.
Oh, yeah.
And then he asks Yoda, what will I find in there? And Yoda tells him, whatever you bring with you.
Or he says, bring with you what you will.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, exactly. To me, that's the greatest thing, because that's what as a coach you have to understand is don't bring yourself in this. This isn't about you. This is about the people you train. Don't bring your stuff into that cave. Just try to go out there without yourself and see what your people need. It's about them, not you.
Yeah.
So a lot of time, it's just the association, is the connection with people. I'm like, okay, what is it that moves you forward? And then we can, we can go somewhere from there. But being able to make a muscle up is not going to motivate you for life to be healthy. It can be like a step, just a fun stuff on the way. But I mean, that wasn't, for example, for Michael, that wasn't what was driving him.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I always had this idea that everyone should have a goal of making it to regionals, whether they actually do or don't. Because I mean, like
even the example
yeah. Because I mean, there's masters. Because I mean, like the idea is to constantly improve on yourself, and maybe not have it in the back of their mind. It's like, all right, one day I'm going to make regionals. But I guess the whole thing about CrossFit is like constantly improving until you may potentially be good enough to compete at regionals. It's
you're
just
a nerd, Tommy. You're a nerd, man.
I'm a loser.
Go on, Julien.
Yeah, but constantly improving for what, though? That's the problem. Is like you need to find your why. Is making it to regionals the goal? Like not everybody has that goal. Constantly improving, I agree 100%. But to some people, that goal will just not be a motivation factor.
Yeah,
you
exactly
kind of have
right.
to. It's like
you got to find what's motivating for the person.
Yeah, it's like trying to sell something to someone. You have to find out what motivates them.
Exactly.
I'm not a salesman, but I've been studying a lot about sales.
You have been sold something before.
Yeah. You got to fight. You got to connect.
Exactly.
You got to figure out what their passion is and how you can help them get to that. That's all part of it. And this is the same thing as making sure people come through the door. I suppose.
Yeah.
Is you got to find that why. So
that's true.
So yourself, Julien, in your gym, what do you do with say you've got an athlete, and obviously you're covering off on the programming and making sure that they're looking after themselves. But what about kind of rehabilitation and stuff that you see out there? How much of that do you rehab and prehab do you program or do you recommend for your athletes? And what do you think about like where that is in the industry?
I mostly do prehab and rehab now. That's mostly what I do because I had athletes that came to me where, I mean, they came to me like top athletes. They always come to me when it's too late, honestly. So it's a lot more rehab than prehab. But I remember I had an Olympic weightlifter. She snatched 97 kilos, right? She could not feel the bar in her left hand.
Right.
Really?
Like she had so much stuff going on with her neck. She could not. She had no feelings in her fingers.
Jeez.
And she could literally not feel the barbell in her hand. And I was like, okay, sure. And but so the coach, and basically the coach was telling her, look, unless either you're broken and you go see a PT or you keep on training. And I was like, are you guys insane? She's 23 years old. You have someone who could go to the Olympics. She's 23 years old, and you're telling her that either she breaks or she keeps on training. To me, that is the most insane thing I hear. Not I've heard. Unfortunately, that I hear on a regular basis is this: is going to those kind of lengths without ever stopping to realize there is a problem somewhere. And so I ended up doing a lot more prehab and as much as I can and rehab a lot in order to make sure that the people that I see can actually train without, going down the road of surgery 2 years later.
Yeah.
So this is mostly what I do now. I don't have my gym anymore because I'm going on seminars all over the world. But wherever I am, I can tell you that the people that come to me, it's assessment because their shoulder is falling off. Their neck is getting pinched every single time they put the bar overhead. That's what I mostly see. And a lot of it is about fixing it by changing the movement patterns, not by doing like a typical PT work of muscle, massage or stuff like that. It's just like you are moving incorrectly. If you are moving incorrectly at a high intensity with those weights, you're going to hurt.
Yeah.
It's not rocket science. You just, it's going to happen every time. But that's the thing with CrossFit is that thing about like constantly pushing and constantly makes, and then they all rely on anxiety a lot to push forward. It makes them kind of unaware of what the difference is between pushing through being uncomfortable and really fucking yourself up.
Yeah.
So
And
that's an interesting
there's
one
a
to
very
me.
fine line right there.
Yeah.
I've often thought that about sort of what motivates the best of the best, and I sort of came to the conclusion that there is a little bit of anxiety or there's a bit of fear that motivates them. It's like, what if I don't, what if I don't actually make it to the games? Or what if I don't make it to regionals? And I know for me personally, going from someone that did have a lot of anxiety that now that doesn't have barely any at all, it's almost as if my push has almost gone a bit. Like I'm a lot happier in life, but my push to just train every day and do this and that every day is gone a bit because I'm more than happy to say, fuck it, I can't be bothered today.
The world's not going to crumble around you if you don't make it to regionals.
It's going to be fun. Yeah.
I can tell you that the best CrossFitters are the most anxious ones.
Yeah.
I can always tell you someone who's a good CrossFitter by their level of anxiety, especially the female athletes. The one that I've met, they all bowl of anxiety, but that pushes them to the gym 3 times a day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So that's great. It's their fuel. So I don't want to take it away because it is their fuel and that's who they are as a person. But then what you need is a coach in the back going like, okay, but you can't raise your arm overhead. That's a problem.
Yeah.
That's different from I'm a wuss. I need to push harder. When you get to that moment where your shoulder is not functioning properly anymore, that's a whole different ballgame, though. I mean, so if we're going to push people to those levels of volume and intensity and weight and all that stuff, then we have to make sure we have a system in place to ensure that the body can take it. And so that's really what I've been doing is going around saying, guys, the system, the way it is with CrossFit, is not designed for the body to take that punishment for so long. We need to have something in place that is more balanced, that is better built, or at least an assistance program on the side and things like this to make sure that the body takes the beating. Because right now, there's certain movement patterns that are creating certain very specific problem within CrossFit, and nobody's talking about it. Because, with anxiety stuff, it's like, well, if I stop, I'm going to lose all my gains. Yeah. I'm going to drop 2 pounds on my snatch or whatever. So they refuse. There's that mentality right now, just plowing forward. But plowing forward eventually leads you into a wall. And so I'm trying to get out there saying, no, I'm not telling you to stop. I'm just saying, how about we add things to CrossFit? I don't want to take away anything. I want to add things to it so that we can do it in a way that your body can take it so that a year from now, you're still doing CrossFit. So I have a little bit of a different perspective when it comes to that. Because if you just ask CrossFitter what they want to do, all they want to do is push right now as hard as they can, which is great. But there has to be ways to also build the body so it can take the next level.
So, and what are some of those things then? Like some actionable things. Like so, if you're talking about like the prehab and the rehab, but you're also mentioning there's a lot of auxiliary exercises that you'd like to see out there in the CrossFit world. What do you think's the most underdeveloped part of the body, or like the biggest problem that doesn't get enough work in the general CrossFit industry?
The one I see the most are the lats, actually.
The lats. Okay.
Yeah, we're talking latissimus dorsi. We're not talking upper back. If you look at most of the exercises that are being done in CrossFit, they're done in the sagittal plane. Everything goes up and down. That's it, right? There's nothing in the frontal plane, so toward and away from you. There's nothing left versus right. There's nothing that is turn based. Like there's no rotation work in CrossFit, basically. So, but the biggest one that I see are the lats. Like everybody, they're using their upper back to do pulling motions. You can see that because everybody, for example, on pull-ups, they're shrugging.
Yeah.
Like if you take people from the back when they do pull-ups, you'll see that they shrug their shoulder as high as they can to go up. That means they are using their traps to pull, not their lats anymore. The job of the lats is to keep your shoulders down. You cannot fully activate your lats by while shrugging. It's physically impossible. So you see that as a pattern where people shrug on their pull-ups. That tells you that they're just trying to bring their elbows back and use their traps and upper back to pull themselves instead of their lats. That comes from the fact there is no activation of the lats in the frontal plane, which is really where they're designed for. So the problem with this is that means you're going to overdevelop the traps like crazy. That means you're going to load the traps anytime you can. And so anytime you have weight overhead, you're going to shrug as well. And so you're putting even more weight on more pressure on your neck. And the problem develop like this into neck issues and shoulder issues because the latissimus dorsi is just not developed properly. There's a very funny test that I see that I do at all my seminars is you take a muscular female CrossFitter, right? And ask her to spread her lats like they do in bodybuilding. You know, like at the shows.
Yeah.
Ask her to spread her lats. They cannot do it. They are incapable of spreading their lats. Every single time they do, they retract the shoulder. And you'll see that they engage their traps like crazy and that their shoulder actually comes in instead of out. Instead of protracting the shoulders out and spreading the lats, every time they squeeze, they actually retract the shoulder and load their traps. They cannot spread their lats. Go at the gym, try it. It's the funniest thing. So, most CrossFitters, especially female CrossFitters, cannot find their lats. It's the second largest muscle group of the body. That's a problem. If I tell you squeeze your quads and you can't, you would say, oh my God, that's so bad. It's the same thing with the lats. And so that leads to tremendous problems because the lat is a structure for the shoulders, for anything that is pressing overhead, for your deadlift, you need the lats for everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so now that they're underdeveloped, it's creating a massive amount of problems. And so there are issues like that. There are more than one, but that to me is the one that scares me the most right now because it's leading to a number of issues like this.
One of the cues, I started training at a powerlifting gym just recently, just for a bit of fun, and one of the first cues they say when you're deadlifting, when you're sitting up on the bar, is to lock your lats down, squeeze your lats, lock your lats down and it obviously to create that rigid structure of your whole upper body.
Yep.
And it feels weird to somebody who's used to CrossFitting and Olympic weightlifting.
Yeah.
But that's the number one go-to. It's like if you've got that locked down, then your upper body is solid, it's tight.
Yep.
If your upper back's a little rounded or whatever, like you
Still
can get
tight.
away with it because you're rigid and you're engaged pretty much everywhere nearly. So
totally. But the problem is we are at the stage where most people cannot do that. If you say lock your lats down, they have no idea what you mean. They cannot physically do it. I kid you not. Like I have a lot of CrossFitters, they cannot engage. The second you say that, they go to their traps, which make them round their upper back even more. So they can't do it. That's the problem. I agree that we have to lock the lats, but how do you do it with people? I can't find them in the first place. If you can't even spread your legs and just squeeze the muscle, how are you going to lock them into place when you deadlift?
Yeah, that's right.
You won't. And so all the cues in the world will not help you if you don't activate them first. And so without all the basic work in the bag of making your lats work, all the cues in the world will never help you. And that's why you have people that keep hurting themselves and the coach is like, I told you to do this. They can't do it. They can't find the muscle. So we have to go at that first. We have to have exercises in the programming that allows people to develop muscle so at least they can find them.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
That's the biggest issue.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on the kipping pull-up and the kipping handstand push-up, that sort of stuff?
Well, kipping pull-ups is one thing. The butterfly is the worst because the butterfly, you don't even need to use your lats anymore because you're floating enough. And then when you catch at that angle, you can almost use your chest to do it. So it's turning the lats off even more completely. And so I understand the need for it to go fast, but I'm not against necessarily the butterfly or stuff like that. I really don't think it's a good movement for people, but at the minimum, if you do that, you're going to have to work on your strict pull-ups and doing lat pull-downs at the gym. at the minimum to make sure that the muscle keep working.
Yeah.
As long as you do that, then the butterfly and the keeping pull-up, that's almost like it's a sport thing. It's just so you can go faster doing metcons. This is it's not part of the training system. It's part of the sport, really. Yeah, and I have no problem. I don't necessarily have a problem against it as long as you do the work on the side that is necessary to keep your lats activated. But just let's be honest. Let's not call it a pull-up anymore. The butterfly is something else. It's just not a pull-up. Yeah. So don't think for a second you're doing enough work for your lats by doing 100 butterfly pull-ups. You're not. That's just not enough. And then honestly, the keeping handstand push-ups, I don't like, because they land on their necks all the time. All that stuff is just ouch. I mean, ouch.
It definitely does hurt when you land on your neck. Do you think that? So I'm assuming you've been to a lot of CrossFit gyms.
Yeah.
Is it? Do you fail to see in the programming just the amount of accessories that are required to actually keep the body healthy? Do you just see a lot of WODs and a lot of CrossFit specific programming where, in actual fact, the bodybuilding and the full range sort of accessories are, if not just as important, if not more important?
Yeah, it is just as important, if not more, as you say.
Yeah.
It's starting. Honestly, it's getting way better, because I remember 5 years ago when I was saying the same thing, people were laughing in my face, saying this is CrossFit, we don't need assistance work, we don't. So the talk has changed about this. It's getting much, much better about it. And so some gyms implement full-blown assistance work on the side. Others try to put it in workouts, which doesn't work, obviously, because then the form goes to shit. But I think at least now it's not an ugly word anymore. Assistance work is not something you whisper in the back of the gym when nobody's listening. You know what I mean? They say, "Hey, do you want to do some?"
It's like drugs.
You know what I mean? Now it's actually accepted that you should do some, and so I think more and more gyms are starting to implement it. So. That's good, but now we need to have a discussion about how to do it correctly. That's something also I've been doing a lot, because there are ways to put this, for example, so the problem with the lats, right? So we need to work in a frontal plane. We need to work in a supinated, because everything in CrossFit is a pronated grip, so we need to work supinated as well. We need to work the left arm versus the right arm to make sure everything is balanced. Yep. So if I do rope pulls attached to a sled, right? If I pull the rope attached to a sled as hard as I can, I've done the left arm versus the right arm. I've done a supinated grip. I engage my lats in the frontal plane, and I'm doing it with very low weight bearing, with very low eccentric and very low skill. So I've gained intensity, I've gained blood flow, and I've gained balancing the body. So out of that one exercise, I can fix already a lot of things. Right? And that is an exercise, because of the low skill nature of it, that I can use in a class system. So you know what I mean? We can. It's not always as complicated as going to the global gym and doing lat pull down. Some of it we can do within a class and structure it in a way that everybody can jump in. And you start to do that exercise. Your lats, almost within a few weeks already, you'll see tremendous progress in people's shoulders, and because they'll stop engaging the traps so much. And so you're just letting the body do its things correctly, suddenly. Yep. And so there are ways to do this.
So how do you try and maximizing bang for your buck? This is the thing that I worry about. So in the gyms that I've coached in, South Melbourne, Richmond, really affluent, pretty affluent areas. Lots of young professionals coming in from work or before work, so they've got an hour. They need to get in, get out, get to work. So how do you try and teach these people, or what do you actually do? You're like, right, guys, you got to get in here at least 20 minutes early, and you got to do this, and this. How do you sell it to people to add an extra 30 minutes to their day, an extra 40 minutes to their day, and what gets the best bang for their buck if they only have that tiny little bit of time that they're going to give up outside of the 1 hour?
Well, how do you sell it to them? You educate them always. You spend 5-10 minutes every single session explaining to people why they're supposed to do what they do, why they're going to get better on everything. So we have to have the entire system in place to explain to them what is it that they're supposed to do, but more importantly, why is it that they're supposed to do it? Again, we go back to the why and the how, right? You have to tell people, look, I understand you only have an hour and everything, but understand that every time you come, you do like a hard 30-minute Metcon. A year from now, your shoulder is going to start aching, and they don't want that either. They just want, like, that's a little bit part of the issue is people get in and they just want to sweat for 30 minutes and leave. And I'm like, that's great. But if we do it in an unbalanced way, a year from now, your knee is going to hurt, your shoulder is going to hurt. Nobody wants that. Nobody has a goal that a year from now, my shoulder is going to fall off.
No, absolutely not.
So it comes also on the coach to spend 5-10 minutes every single session explaining the why they should do certain things. People misunderstand greatly the importance of a 5-minute explanation every time. Like it's a tremendous value to just take 5 minutes of your time and explain to people why they do things. But after that, there are ways to do this in a very efficient way. Like I was talking about the rope pull, right? So the rope pull you can fix so much just with one exercise. The key is to look at the programming and realize where the imbalances are. And so you realize in CrossFit, the problem is mostly the planes of movement. There's no rotation, there's no frontal, stuff like that. So you need exercises that can do that. And this is why I chose the strongman movement so much, because they allow me to work in different planes of movement. So you don't have to take away anything that they do. You just want to add better exercises to fix them as they go, or at least to make sure they don't break as they go.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is, instead of a snatch, maybe you're gonna carry a yoke overhead instead of, like doing deadlift. Maybe we can pull the rope. Maybe you need to engage the glutes instead of doing thrusters. Maybe we can do prowler sprints. You can still do that workout. You can still create tremendous amount of intensity and blood flow. It's just a matter of choosing the exercises correctly to make sure that we balance the body. The body only seeks to balance. It doesn't care that you do CrossFit. It just wants balance first. So we need to make sure we balance all the planes of movement, the types of contraction, the types of movement that they are. And if we can do that within the spirit of CrossFit, then we have the best system possible. But it requires, first of all, you to spend 5 minutes as a coach explaining to your people why you do what you do and how you do it. And after that is balancing things correctly, understanding the true nature of movement. And between those two, I can make anything fit in an hour. I don't need that long.
So I wonder why none of that movement really came into CrossFit. Why it was such a...
Well, it was very new, though.
But now it's not.
Yeah.
Now we're so far down the line. People like Julien going around, people that are very educated now that have come across that either work for CrossFit HQ or work on their own, developing their own brand, teaching how to train better, but it's still none of that side to side, none of that that the other plane, the frontal plane,
frontal plane, sagittal plane.
Like, when do you think that'll actually change, Julien? Like, is there because it's not changing at the top. You're not seeing it in the workouts that they announce and the CrossFit Games. Is it changing at the grassroots level at all, or are we still just
this is the only way? Yeah, this is the only way things change in CrossFit is at the grassroots level. HQ is, I don't know if it's arrogance. I don't know what it is that they just refuse to. This is so fucking arrogant.
Perfect word for it. I can't stand CrossFit HQ. I can't stand anything about the way they run things. But that's a whole other story.
Yeah, so I think everything in CrossFit, and I think that's the greatest strength of CrossFit, is it happens at the grassroots level. I think HQ owns the CrossFit Games, but we, the community, own CrossFit. Yeah, and so everything starts at the grassroots level, as you were saying. And so that takes a little bit longer, obviously, and you don't necessarily see it because people don't post about it as much or do stuff like that. But I can tell you from going to a lot of places, it's happening. It's just happening in a very quiet way because HQ makes fun of that kind of stuff, makes fun of assistance work for the longest time, made fun of Global Gym. I still don't understand why. They were, so it's still like almost like a dirty world, but people are starting to implement it. They do a lot more strongman. I see the exercises that I like the most, like the overhead yoke carry, the rope pulls, being used in a lot of gyms worldwide now. So it's happening. It's just happening in a very quiet way because HQ is not endorsing it, because it's not. There's still people that think it's not CrossFit to do that stuff. But I'm like, look, high intensity, constantly varied functional movement. A sled sprint is CrossFit then. Nobody said it has to be snatches and butterfly pull-ups.
That's right.
Like let's go back to the spirit of CrossFit, to the original idea. And the original idea was high intensity functional movements. I'm like, then guess what? Strongman works better.
Yeah.
What I've often thought is, would CrossFit ever take away or take this knowledge that people like yourself are taking around the world and go, oh shit, maybe actually this exercise isn't that good for the longevity of the
No, they'll never do that.
Definitely not.
They definitely won't. But it really is my hope they'll take away the pistol because I fucking hate that exercise.
There's no way.
Yeah, exactly.
That's one thing with them is they're incapable of saying, whoops, I'm wrong.
Yeah.
So there was a video about, because I've been going to internal torque on the snatch versus external for a while now. And CrossFit weightlifting is starting to put videos about engaging their lats more, which more lats, less traps, which I've been saying for a long time.
More lats,
and
less traps.
More traps, so less traps, more lats.
Yeah.
That's not what they used to say. They used to say you have to have active shoulder that used to shrug.
Shrug.
If you remember,
That was the number one cue.
Okay, so now
Richie Patterson said the same thing, actually. Richie Patterson said he noticed the change in CrossFit's terminology and getting rid of the word shrug, use your traps.
Okay, I can tell you why. Because Mike Bergener, Coach Bergener, came to a camp of mine. I was in Victus last August, and I was explaining why we have to have internal torque, and to engage properly. He was like, and in front of everybody, he was like, you know what? You're right. I was wrong. I thought external rotation. I was wrong about that. And then we started to have a conversation, and it's moving forward. So I'm winning on this. But then suddenly CrossFit weightlifting, they say more lats, less traps, because they can't say. What I want them to do is engage your pecs. I won't say engage your lats, but engage your pec as well. If you engage your pec, you go to our internal torque. That's a pushing mechanism. That's what we want on the snatch. If you want, I can go over the explanation as to why. But
yeah.
Do you want me to?
That would, for
absolutely.
sure.
So
Okay. So you have two movement patterns for the upper body. You have a pull and you have a push, right? Like look at evolution 101. The human body was created, the upper body was created either to pull or to push. A rotation is a pull on one side, a push on the other, right?
Yeah.
So everything is a pull or a push. When you pull, you create torque externally, right? You understand? You know what I mean? You grab a dumbbell, you pull. You're going to notice, like naturally, you want to create torque at the humerus in order to engage the lats better, right? Does that make sense?
Yes.
So that's external torque. Okay, so a push is the opposite of a pull, obviously. So a push is going to be internal torque.
No, I'm joking. Say that last bit again. Sorry.
You idiot. Good one, Tommy. We'll have to cut that gag out.
Yeah, we probably will.
Tommy tried to make a joke in the middle of your explanation, Julien.
There you go.
It up.
And so internal torque, right, for pushing. You're thinking a punch. You've seen people punch naturally. They don't necessarily rotate the shoulder, but they create torque toward internal rotation. Like you can see the way people punch, the way people throw, the way people, if you were to push a car naturally, you would try to engage the pec as much as you can. It's like grabbing dumbbells and pressing dumbbells. You're going toward internal torque, not external torque. So now, find me a movement when you push, any movement where you're stronger going toward external than internal.
I can't think of one now.
Okay.
There is none. Okay. So now, let me ask you this. When you hold a snatch overhead, is that a pull or is that a push?
When you're holding it overhead, push.
Exactly.
Oh, that's interesting.
So why are you doing external torque on a push?
Oh, that's really interesting because I've always been... So Bill and I used to coach together and we'd always make the same... we'd always say, hold the dinner plates.
Yeah.
So try to show the armpit forward or try to externally rotate the shoulder. And yet if I'm pushing up overhead... So are you saying that by trying to externally rotate, we're not only losing torque, we're also creating potential injury?
You are. It's exactly what I'm saying. So now, do something. Put your arm overhead and externally rotate the shoulder.
Yep.
Right?
Doing
Okay.
it now?
Have someone push against that arm. So try to push an arm forward from this position. Like you're pushing a wall away.
Tommy's doing it to me.
I'm pushing in and my pants are off.
So Tommy, so he has his arm overhead, right?
Yeah.
Push his arm backwards, and then you're going to fight him.
Oh, yeah?
In order to fight him, you need to engage your chest, right? Your pec.
Yeah. I'm feeling my pecs. Yep.
Okay. look at the bicep. You see that internal torque?
Yeah.
Okay, go external now.
Okay.
And you lose all power.
Yeah, it's a lot weaker for me, for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm all for
Shit.
showing the armpits because I want you to engage your lats. But you cannot do that while forcefully externally rotating the shoulders, because then you take all the pec, you take all the pressing mechanism out of the equation. And your shoulder now is in a really bad spot.
Yeah. Geez, that's interesting, isn't it?
Because you took the pec and the short head of the bicep away. Look at gymnastics. Gymnastics is all short head of the bicep take in order to create that internal torque.
Yeah.
Why is the snatch the only movement out there that is a push done in an externally rotated way where everything else goes toward internal torque?
The only thing that I would say with that is if the weight's bearing down on me and I'm trying to think about internal rotation, I just feel like my shoulder safety it's much more compromised if I'm rolling the shoulder forward when there's like 100 plus kilos bearing down on it, you know?
No, I don't want you to rotate the shoulder, but you also have to understand you have not developed the mobility necessary for that movement because you work toward the pulling movement by externally rotating the entire time. So you develop the mobility, which is range of motion while maintaining torque. That's what mobility is.
Yeah.
Range of motion is flexibility. Mobility is range of motion while maintaining torque. So you've worked on the torque at that range of motion, but externally rotating. Therefore, working on your pull. You've never worked on your push in that particular, so you don't have the mobility on the pushing motion to hold the weight overhead while engaging the chest and the short head of the bicep correctly. That will come. But the problem is for the entire career, you've been taught to externally rotate that shoulder when you should try to engage the pec instead. And so it's very important to understand concepts like that. Otherwise, your shoulder is going to be do all the work without getting any help from the pressing mechanism, which is the short head of the bicep and the pec. Why would you want to take those two out anyway? Yeah. And so that creates a number of injuries.
And let alone, I mean, it's stopping people from really PBing their movements. I mean, think about how much better you'd be if you've got really strong position overhead.
Exactly. And so imagine what you do to your T-spine when you externally rotate the shoulder so much. That's why people have neck problems. It's because they load their T-spine so much and their traps. So less lats, more traps. Now you shrug the bar. And of course, people have major shoulder problem. The shoulder is put in a very unadvantageous position that goes against evolution. Evolution gave us joints that work a certain way. You cannot go against that.
Yes. Yep.
And yet, when you're being taught to externally rotate, that's exactly what you're doing. You're trying to press in a pulling mechanism. You're going against evolution. You will never win this. And so that was my argument with Coach Bergener, who agreed with me. And then here comes CrossFit weightlifting, who keeps saying, so now they're saying more lats. At least they're saying don't shrug anymore. So it's starting to change. But what they're going to say next is engage the pec. Because then they'll go back to what I'm saying now, but without saying that I said it. So because that was the argument I was having, because they were showing that external rotation, and then someone tagged me on the video for CrossFit Olympic weightlifting. So I start saying, how come you're doing that in a pull? So I go through the argument, and the argument was like, you're right, I agree with you, but this is now how we teach newbies. Like new beginners, we're going to teach them that way because they can't find their lats any other way. And then they went on like this. And so I was like, so what you're telling me is you're going to teach people wrong so you can teach them right later
from the start
on.
when you had them at a blank canvas.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's mold them all they're most malleable
Let's
in
make
the wrong
sure that we do it
direction.
wrong first. And then on top of it, are you saying people are that stupid? It's like, I'm going to speak very slow and very loud, and you're going to do things wrong. But don't worry, one day you'll be very smart like me.
That's right.
And you'll be able to do it correctly. I'm like, fuck that. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So spend 10 minutes explaining to people. If your people are too stupid to understand internal rotation, it's your fault, not them. That means you have not taught them correctly. You are not dealing in knowledge. Teach your people, coach them. Just then spend 5 minutes explaining the difference between torque and rotation, between internal versus external, and why. Teach evolution and why we need to create internal torque when we press. So spend 5 minutes at every session about that. So they so they can ingest that and everything. But stop considering people too stupid to understand those concepts.
Yeah.
I mean, and that they don't need to know. That's what kills me when people say, "Oh, they don't need to do it." Yes, they need to know. People always need to be smarter.
Yeah, absolutely.
Always. This is your job as a coach, is to make people better. So yes, they need to know, and you need to make them know. You know what I mean? And so the CrossFit weightlifting is starting that change toward creating, like, engaging the peg. But because of their arrogance, they just can't do it right away. And so in the meantime, so now we have more lats, less traps, and we have that concept of we're going to teach them wrong first, then later on we'll teach them better. That annoys me so much.
It's so funny, all the stuff that you would see taught in the early days of CrossFit and across all their seminars. And then I remember doing the level 1 seminar, and they taught me a pull-up, and then I went and did the gymnastics seminar, and they're like, oh yeah, no, forget everything they taught you in the level 1.
Yeah,
I'm like, well, what the fuck's going on here then? Hang on a second. And then
but they still can't do it. They still can't say it or change it.
Yeah, I know, but I'm like, okay, so you're happy to have your original course absolutely contradicted by the higher powers, the actual professional gymnasts. But like you say, to your point, you're too stubborn to go, well, actually, what we actually do, it's just it's really crazy. What other things frustrate you the most, Julien? You sound so passionate about this one point. What's another one that gets you fired right up that you can break the
so we have
fallacy?
the same problem for the lower body. It's external torque on a hinge pattern. And then that's Kelly Starrett 101. He went at it very hard. He actually wrote an article like a month ago for Men's Health where he explains why you have to squat with your feet forward.
Yeah.
So first of all, if you say everybody needs to squat the same way, you lost me. Like, I'm going to quote Star Wars again, but only the Sith deals in absolutes.
I can tell. I can tell you're a real Star Wars fan. Have you seen?
Are you into Star Wars?
I like it.
I like Star Wars.
I like
Yoda, let's be honest.
We're speaking the same universe here.
You have two movement patterns for the lower body. That's the squat and the hinge, right? And so a squat is external torque. Why? Because that external torque and rotation at the hip allows you to lock your SI joint, stabilize your hips so you can transfer the power of your legs into your upper body without losing any balance on top. So literally, the point of external torque is to kill the swivel at the hip so that you can transfer the power of your legs into your upper body. Right? That's the point of external torque.
Yep.
So it's basically a swivel killer. Okay, what is a hinge? A hinge is a swivel at the hip. That's what a hinge is. So if you externally torque to hinge, you kill the swivel. You can't hinge anymore. That's the point. So in order to hinge properly, you need to create internal torque, not external.
Right. Okay. I'm following. I'm following along.
Let me give you an example. Like the sprint is a pure hinge, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever seen a guy sprinting externally rotated?
No, that's a really good point. I have, and they run really fucking
very slowly.
Yeah,
very slowly.
Normally the kid that's getting apples thrown at him in the playground or something.
I did see him, and he died.
Shit.
You'll see them like trying to create torque internally. They don't externally rotate, like Michael Johnson teaches losing external rotation.
Yeah.
So it's all about internal torque on hinging patterns, right? Okay, so now tell me, what's a deadlift?
Picking up something off the ground in a
hinge pattern.
In a hinge pattern. Yep.
And so what happens if you hinge externally with creating external torque? Because it's important, because I will explain to you why there's so much back problems.
Yeah.
If you try to hinge in an external torque, that means you kill the swivel. The second you kill the swivel, your hips cannot do the work anymore. So now you're going to require your spine to do it. So now instead of hinging, you're doing a flexion extension of the spine. So that becomes a back extension. So instead of if you do a deadlift while creating external torque, instead of letting the swivel do the work, you're going to force your spine to do the work. And that's what you see in CrossFit, where people end up doing like flexion of the spine and then really forceful extension. And then they develop those very thick lower back that you see, those shark fins that you see in CrossFit. That's why.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. I always thought okay. So QLs. So because I was someone that had overdeveloped QLs definitely, and ever since I started strengthening up my ass, it's sort of I just don't rely on my lower back as much anymore.
Yeah. But as you have more glutes, you can naturally hinge better. You can naturally swivel better.
Yes.
And so in order to and the glute major is an extensor as well.
Yes.
And so everything goes toward internal torque.
Yeah.
But the problem is, if you look at Kelly Starrett, like he tells you to squat with your feet forward in order to help with your sprinting. But I'm like, a squat is not a hinge. It's like saying I'm going to work on my pulling to better my pushing. Those are opposite movement patterns. On the squat, you're supposed to work on external torque. On a hinge, you're supposed to work on internal torque. And so most of the talk in the industry, if you look, is always toward external. We never talk about internal torque either. So by the way, a kettlebell swing, that's a pure hinge.
Yeah, definitely.
So you would want to be creating torque internally. And yet look at people when they do kettlebell swings, their knees just shot out like crazy.
Yeah.
So they're going into an external torque to create a hinge pattern. So what happens? They do flexion extension of the spine on kettlebell swing instead of doing a swivel at the hip. And so that basically makes their lower back work so hard.
One of the biggest things I found interesting about Kelly Starrett's way of teaching was the pictures that he had in his book, Supple Leopard, which I've actually got a lot from. It's a great book, but a lot of the pictures, like you said before, was any sort of hinging or squatting movement or pulling off the floor. The chicks, I can't remember her name.
Diane Fu.
Yeah, that's right, Diane Fu. Her feet were so far forward, but her knees were pushed out so far.
Yeah, he copped a lot of flack for that. It was like he said, put your feet reasonably narrow and push your legs out as far as you can humanly possibly do it. And we're going to take a photo of it. We're going to put it in the book.
And then we'll just put it in the book. Yeah. But he was talking about like creating like tons of torque through the hip because of that. But I would just assume that valgus or varus fault, like if your knees are too far in or too far out, you're going to cop some sort of injury, you know?
Yeah, but again, like that brings the question, like how come nobody else does it? If I take the top 1,000 squatters in the world, none of them squat like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So what are you saying? That's exactly the argument he was making was like, well, like those people, they put more weight on the bar, but therefore, and I'm like, therefore what?
Yeah.
So you are saying that evolution gave us a bone structure that works one way, but a muscle structure that works another one. That in order to lift heavier, we have to do it incorrectly. Really?
So true.
So you're saying evolution fucked up that bad?
Yeah.
And you're also
capable of doing more weight, but in an incorrect form. Whereas you alone know how to do it correctly. I'm like, oh, come on.
Yeah, exactly.
We were planning on getting Kelly Starrett on the show, but we've scrapped him.
We've cooked him.
See you later, Kelly Starrett.
Yeah, Kelly who? Kelly Star Wars. One of the biggest things I always found interesting as well, it's a bit of a tangent, but I was speaking to a PT who I used to work with, and she used to say, it's funny, you teach your clients how to brace so differently to the way I teach mine. I was like, oh, really? Like, how do you teach yours? Well, the way I teach mine is, I teach them to suck the belly into their rib cage and and breathe out as they go down in the squat. And I was like, oh, okay, so that's good for you, but the person who's got 4 million kilos on their back should do it a different way. Well, yes. So you don't reckon that this person should know how to brace even more safely than her? Yeah, CrossFit sucks.
Exactly.
Cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
It's exactly
awesome.
that.
Yeah, it's just bizarre, isn't it?
But like every truth has to be placed in its context.
Yeah, exactly.
Always. That's just a foundation of philosophy, really.
Yeah.
You are telling me you can describe movement or body positioning without talking about evolution. How?
Yeah.
Took us 200,000 years to get here. Don't you think we have guidelines and rules we have to basically kind of go by? It's just, you know what I mean? Like we are moving a certain way. It is what it is. You're not going to go around that. And so that's all those PTs are trying to recreate. They look at the body on on joint positioning that is still. And I'm like, but any movement, you're never still in nature. At least you're fighting gravity. You're either pulling or pushing. You're either squatting or hinging. But there is no such thing as a body not moving. So you talk about the arm overhead and everything, but you're not explaining to me whether the person is pulling or pushing.
Yeah.
Movement drives joint positioning, not the other way around. To me, fundamentally, the base argument that they give you is wrong. And again, the arrogance that they have to basically explain to you that their way is the right way, but yet every single athlete or even just athletic person in the world does it a different way.
Yeah.
Like the squat with the knees out. Like, who does it? Because I've seen in powerlifting, I've never seen one person squat like this.
Yeah,
So you're saying what? Like your way is better, but their way is crap, and yet they squat twice as much weight as you do.
Yeah, that's the
at
big
some
thing.
points, and not one person either. Like we're talking thousands.
Yeah.
So they're all doing it wrong. You're doing it right with your 300 pounds, but they're all doing it wrong with their 900.
Yeah.
Does it not sound weird?
It's
Yeah,
like
I got told off by Robert Cabas the other day. Rob's a Olympic silver medalist weightlifter.
Yeah.
And I was squatting, driving the knees out. This is like when I very first started at Phoenix, the weightlifting club.
Did you said the other day? By the other day, I mean 14 years ago.
Yeah.
Anyway, I squatting with my knees out, and he said, "What are you squatting with your knees so far out for?" I was like, he said, just go up and down.
Yeah,
sit up and down.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
Just that's all he said. Just sit up and down.
Well,
I was like,
that's how we're born to do it. That's how we're born to move.
Yeah. So it's
I don't know. I'm still fighting that, by the way. I had to fix every CrossFitter that came into my gym. I had to fix their squats because they were all doing it, like narrow stance, knees completely out, hips straight on top of the ankle, which means you can't use your ass correctly.
Yeah.
For most people, maybe some can, but most people cannot use their glutes properly with their hips directly on top of their ankle, with their knees so far out forward.
Yeah.
Most of them had knee pain. None of them could squat heavy. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
It's like look at all the other guys. They're not squatting like this. But every time they come back and they say, yeah, but that's the way the body is built. I'm like, no, it's not. I'm sorry, but that is just, no, it's not.
yeah.
It's literally like driving the wrong way up a freeway and going, why the fuck are all these people driving the wrong way?
Exactly. Look at all those morons going the wrong way.
Yeah.
What a bunch of fuckheads.
What a fucking idiot. That's so good. So Julien, have you ever yourself involved yourself with CrossFit? Like, have you done WODs? Have you experimented with it? What's your own training look like?
Oh yeah, no, I do. But to me, CrossFit just tapped into something that was there already. I like CrossFit. It's not my favorite kind of pain. I'm better at shoulder.
Oh yeah,
that's the way I'm built, I guess.
Yep.
Like I won't do Murph, that's for sure.
Oh,
but
screw that.
I love Grace. I love all those short workouts. I even like Helen. I did Helen under 9 minutes, I believe.
That's good. Good.
So I like all those workouts a lot. Was it under 8 minutes or 9 minutes?
I don't remember. Minutes would be very good. That'd be up.
Yeah, no, I was actually.
We'll go with 8.
We'll go with that at 4.
Yeah, we'll give you the benefit of the doubt.
I cannot go past 10 minutes though. That's it. I'm done after that. Honestly, Helen was about the longest I could do. But I like that workout. It's just I have a tendency to do more like again. To me, the point is to get intensity and blood flow.
Yeah, for sure.
That's really what the point is. So I like to do that with sleds more. I love the sled work.
Yep.
I like pulling them with a rope. I like like a truck pull.
Yep.
So we call that like the harness. The harness. I like sprinting. I like dragging it heavy and stuff like that. So I like sandbags a lot. So I do a lot of the same kind of high intensity functional movement workout. So the idea of CrossFit, I just do not necessarily like the barbell to do it. That's all.
Yeah. Yep.
But I love the fact that they implement gymnastics, all that stuff. I think it's great. I love CrossFit. I love the training system. My only problem is sometimes the choice of exercises. I just don't think the barbell and Olympic weightlifting is the best fit for CrossFit. If we look at what the idea was, what the principles of CrossFit are, then to me, the barbell and Olympic weightlifting is not the best fit.
That makes sense.
Definitely.
That makes sense.
So I love to do it. I just do it with sleds and sandbags and stuff like that.
Yep. So you still have a fair rig.
That didn't go down well at all, Tommy.
Yeah, that did go down.
Julien's like, oh, that was kind of weird.
I have a shit rig.
Sorry for creeping you out there, Julien.
Yeah,
hey, so
I got too excited.
Julien, we might go to we might throw to 6 from 6. Have you got some time for 3 questions from me, 3 questions from Tommy to wrap it up?
Yeah. Bring it on.
Cool, brother. All right, so are you a well-travelled man, Julian?
Yep.
He's in Barcelona right now. He's from France. He's been to Australia.
Silly question.
I think you've been to a few.
Yeah. So my question to you is, what is your favourite travel destination on the planet? Can be anywhere. Big town. Can be a small. It can be a small place.
That's
can be
a
a
hard
continent.
one. I've seen. There's a few places I really like. Holland I love the people there. It was very humble people. Very. I loved. It was a very interesting place to go. Was Holland for the people. I liked Dubai. Was very interesting for the energy.
Yeah,
because they're pushing forward very much. So it was very interesting in that sense. I like Rome because they have the best leather. I bought the nicest shoes ever there.
Nice.
So I'm very happy about that. So it depends for what, basically. I have spots, but like this year, I'm going to manage to go to a lot of countries I've never been to, like Australia.
Nice.
I'm coming to you guys. I'm going to go like to Asia. I'm going to go to a lot of those places. So ask me that question a year from now and I'll be able to tell you.
Well, we will. We will do it again.
We'll get you back on the show, my friend.
Yeah.
So my next question's similar vein. So, what is your dream destination? Where's somewhere you haven't been that is the absolute top of your bucket list?
There is one I really want to see. I got to say, it's called the Vadou Island. It's they have a private resort. You know, it's that beach that has the phosphorescent plankton where you go in the water.
Yeah, I know of the phosphorescent plankton. I've had friends that have done diving in that kind of scenario, and they said it's the greatest thing. Night diving.
Beautiful.
There's a private island called Vadou Islands. They have a resort there. It's a private island, private resort, and everything. It's the middle of in the Maldives. I really want to go there because first of all, the island is, as you can imagine, gorgeous, but I want to be able to go swim in that one night. That must be ridiculous.
Yeah, I've heard. I had a friend tell me. A friend of mine, Liz, did it with her boyfriend, and they dove maybe 6 meters down or something like that, and they were able to sit on the bottom of the ocean and took all their air out, sat on the bottom of the ocean, and they flapped their hands and whacked the sand next to them, and the plankton came up, and it was like you can only imagine pitch darkness with just all these amazing colours, and you were just. She said it was the craziest thing she's ever seen.
Yeah.
That's it. Moments like that.
Yes.
That's what life is about, right there.
100%.
It's something like that. That will be printed in your brain to the day you die.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That I want to do.
Absolutely.
Damn, that's so cool.
My final question is, any books that you like to recommend to people? They can be a graphic novel. They can be an encyclopedia. They can be anything.
Well, there's a few. Like actually, we started a book club with StrongFit, and the first one that I gave was something called the Black Hole Wars.
Okay.
The Black Hole War. So it was Leonard Susskind, so the quantum physics guy, and he proved that Stephen Hawking was wrong about something. Took him 15 years to do it. But out of that came some crazy new idea, like the world is a hologram, a bunch of new stuff they talk about in physics. But the great thing about this book is that it doesn't matter if you suck at physics and math, you can still understand.
Yeah.
He'll give you a better understanding of the physics of the world, but he will also show you how little we understand and how complex the world is outside of us.
Oh, yeah.
And to me, every time I love those books because it opens my mind to things like this where, no, we don't know shit.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's good.
I read a book called The Physics of the Impossible by Mikio Kaku, the physicist, and that was so entertaining because it was such high-level physics. It was basically breaking down everything that we think is impossible and how close to reality it is and things that we're actually doing. There's 3 levels of impossibility in this book. But it actually breaks it down in layman's terms. I was reading a physics book as an idiot, and I was enthralled. I'm like, I know what's going on here.
See, that's what I need to do. Like, I read Stephen Hawking's A Brief History in Time. We've got to get you back on the show, Julian. We're just going to have a completely different conversation to what we did today. We'll just talk about all this stuff. This is what Bill and I love the most. We're losers.
You included, Julien.
Yeah, you're a loser as well, man. But it's so important, like, to break down in layman's terms. So you actually understood most of it, did you?
Not Not really. But
You understood-
the
you
basic
understood his
tenets
name.
of it, yeah, I did. Yeah,
You
it was-
understood the
But
title
you
of
see,
the book.
remember I was talking about neuroergonomy, the art of presenting knowledge in an accessible
right.
way.
Yeah.
That's what they do.
That's
See,
right.
and so now, even if you don't understand the math of it,
Yep.
you understand the concept. So now you have a better understanding of the universe and how it works.
Yep.
yeah, exactly.
So that's what it's about. That's mentoring for you. Like that guy mentored you forward. He allowed you to have a better understanding of the world. There's no price to this.
exactly.
And that's what neuroergonomy is managing to explain those concepts in a way that people can actually use. Because you could have a PhD writing that book with the mathematical equation, and by page number 2, you quit going like, dude, I don't understand any of
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
Well,
So
come on,
he did
go easy. I'm
But
pretty good. at
he
maths.
got it.
Yeah.
He got it to you. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
He got it to you in a form that you could understand, and that's why I love Leonard Susskind. He's able to do that. He's able to explain to you how it works, even though those are excessively complex ideas, in terms you can actually understand. I don't understand the math of it, but I understand the concepts.
Yeah.
And so those books to me are tremendously invaluable. Like they make you smarter, and they make
Yeah,
you
they
look
do.
at the world correctly.
Yep.
Yeah, that's
definitely.
right.
I think a really good way to do it is if you can explain it to a kid, then you have a good grasp of it. If you
Yeah,
can
yeah,
really
that's right.
lay
Yeah,
it down.
exactly.
Yeah. Hey,
Exactly, and that's that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No, I was just going to jump into my first question,
Yeah.
Julien.
Go ahead.
What do you like to do when you have some spare time?
That means when I'm not training or not working. Yeah,
Correct.
So we do. I'll have to. Obviously, spend a lot of time with my daughter whenever I can.
Yep.
And then the next thing we do is Richard is my right hand man. Richard is the best at this. He finds like awesome places for us to go eat at. So we always find the best restaurants for lunch and dinner. And we have such like last night we went to we're in Barcelona right now. We went to a restaurant where the food was amazing, right?
Yeah.
And they just kept bringing us the food. And then from there, the guy took us upstairs to a VIP bar that you can only enter through invitation. And then we had there was live music, but then the bartender comes and he asks you not even what you want to drink. He said, "What do you like? Do you like citrus? Do you like sweet?" And then he makes you drinks as he goes.
That's
And
cool.
so,
That's
man,
insane.
that was such a cool evening. So
That is
yeah,
awesome.
I love good food.
Yeah,
So it was really cool.
Beautiful, man. Hey, what about a big inspiration that you look up to, or someone that you used to look up to?
The biggest inspiration in my life was my brother. He's been dead 20 years, but he was the sharpest mind I've ever met, the smartest person I've ever met. He was a smart one. And he taught me how to think properly. He taught me how to process information. He was we had like 18 years. He was my half brother, so we were 18 years difference.
Wow.
But he's the one who mentored me in life into becoming smarter. So without him, there's no way I could do what I do. So he was by far my biggest influence.
Nice.
Cool.
Okay, cool. And finally, Julien, if you can invite 3 people, dead or alive, to dinner, who would they be and why?
One of them would be Nietzsche, Friedrich Nietzsche, because he was to me the greatest thinker. Like when I was 18, I read Thus Spoke Zarathustra, his last book.
Okay.
And it's hard to explain, but sometimes you read a book and you feel like they wrote it for you.
Yeah. Yep.
That's how it felt to me.
I got that with The Wind in the Willows.
Whatever works, man.
Yeah.
I felt like it was written for me.
Like, fuck, I was just going to hang the call up.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
Sorry.
that's cool. That's cool.
Second person.
I think it'd be Charles Munger. I would love to meet that guy. Charles Munger is Warren Buffett's right-hand man.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
And he's actually done a bunch of business lectures for business school and stuff like that. But in it, he explains the 20 points of elementary wisdom or how they look at investing. And out of those 20 points, none of them are finance related. He's looking at principles of life that he adapted for the finance world and everything. He has actually something, you can find that for free on the internet. It's called elementary, what is it called? Worldly Wisdom, Elementary Lessons of Worldly Wisdom by Charles Munger.
That's cool.
And it's so smart. And it gives you all those 20 points of elementary wisdom in life. and none of them have to do with finances. And yet that's the way they look at every company they invest into and things like this. That dude is excessively sharp.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I would love to meet him because like when that PDF that is online, I read that, and you could take all of it and apply it to training, to coaching.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it was so sharp, so smart. So I would love to be able to meet Charles Munger.
Yeah.
And I think the third one would be Leonard Susskind, so the physicist.
Yes.
A little bit for the same reasons. Is like he's able to explain things that are so complex in a way that is so accessible. I would like to pick his brain on how he does that. Like how he got to that level where he can explain it so well, like in such an accessible way, like the mindset required, all that stuff. I would like to say that because that's what I would thrive to do, is to be able to have that kind of a talent at making knowledge so accessible. That is a very, very important talent.
Definitely.
Wow. That's a very switched on dinner party.
That's a very switched on dinner party. Yeah, you wouldn't be making too many dick gags there.
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, like I could be there and make some real shit gag. Yeah. So guys,
the other guys could be. They could be surprises. They could be surprises. You know, Nish could be a real fucking left of square kind of.
Yeah, just a real weirdo.
All right, so. Julien, thanks so much for coming on the show. Where can people find out more about StrongFit, more about you, more about your seminars?
Okay, so you can go on strongfit.com. There's all the list over there, or you can go on the Facebook page at StrongFit, or my Instagram at StrongFit1. And actually, I'll be in Australia. So for the 4th to the 10th of February, I'll be in Melbourne. For the 11th to the 17th, I'm in Queensland.
Yep.
Then a week after that in Sydney, and then the 25th to the 26th I'll be in Wollongong. Sorry.
Beautiful, New South Wales. Excellent.
And so I'll be basically in Australia for the month of February.
Awesome.
Now you'll be at Schwartz CrossFit in Melbourne, will you?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
And then with a mind muscle body guy.
CrossFit
also.
Creature. Yes. Excellent.
Yep.
It's going to show I'm going to miss it because I work there and I'll be overseas, mate. So we'll have to.
There you go. Cool.
We'll have to shake hands when we meet up again later in the year.
Exactly. I can't wait to see Australia. And I hear you guys have good coffee as well, so I'm happy.
You are absolutely going to love it, my friend. It's the perfect time of year to be over here. If you like coffee, then
if you like girls and coffee, then you're on.
you are all
It's
in.
on.
All right, well,
awesome.
Thanks so much for taking the time, Julien.
Thanks, man.
It was a real pleasure.
Thank you so much, guys, for having me.
Awesome.
Absolutely. All righty, and that's a wrap. All righty, guys. If you enjoyed that show, then if you're a first-time listener, please subscribe. If you are a multiple-time listener and you're a subscriber and you haven't left us a rating and review, please do so. Both of those actions really help us climb the iTunes rankings and also get us more downloads, which helps us grow the show, which helps us keep this thing coming into the future for you with more varied and more awesome guests. Also, if there's anything that you want in the show that you want to look back on, head to www.adventurefittravel.com/radio for all of our show notes. All the links will be in there. Also, don't forget to check out Carve, www.carve.ph/ADVF. Get 10 hours free. And audibletrial.com/ADVF for your free audiobook and 30-day Audible trial. And lastly, Adventure Fit Travel. Email me directly, doc@adventurefittravel.com if you want to travel the world for free, if you can get a group together. Let's make it happen, and see you next week.
Discovery Roger, go for deploy.